going to talk with George Gabb, or actually he's going to talk with us. George is the lead professor for the AI programs that we just created this last year at Miami Dade College. George actually answered the call. You know, what's in the news right now about AI is ChatGPT. And so he's going to talk to us about what ChatGPT is for both the employers and the educators this morning. And then he's going to talk about how he uses it in the classroom.
So I just wanted to show, how powerful this tool is. So I went to ChatGPT 3 and just asked it to create this for me, and I'll show you how it generated all of these and the prompts that it uses. So first of all, I asked it to define itself for us, right? So what is ChatGPT 3? And it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3. And what does that mean? Basically, it is a machine learning model based on the transformer model, and it is a very large language model, and it was trained on vast amounts of data out there that's on the web, and it can basically predict. It's built and trained to predict text and generate human like language. So that's basically what this model is. Now, this model is extremely powerful. It does not. One thing about this model is it does not know what it doesn't know, as one researcher pointed that out. And so basically, as you use this model, it can be very deceiving in the way that you communicate with it. So one of the most important thing about utilizing this model is being able to query it appropriately. As a machine learning model, like I mentioned, it is a transformer model, and as a language model, it's been trained on there. It says, it's been trained on tremendous amounts of data. When you ask that model, it tells you basically, I believe it was trained, it took them about the amount of power to power San Francisco for an entire year was the amount of power that it used to train that model. So it being a pre-trained model and being able to utilize it is one of the good features of it, right? One of the beneficial features of it. So you don't have to go retrain those models. Some of the pros, of course, is the ability to generate text from a prompt, generate text from a prompt with limited information. So it can complete sentences, documents, ideas. It can generate all sorts of content utilizing a prompt with a very limited information. It can also generate content even with a limited vocabulary. And so that's how GPT works. So the way it works is that you're going to give it a prompt, and it's going to give you a response to try and complete that prompt for you. Some cons against it, of course, like with all learning models, it's basically, while it can generate very high quality text, it is also prone to all the shortcomings of machine learning models, especially with bias, etc., and producing sometimes inappropriate content. And of course, it is a con is that it is expensive. So this is one of the things out there as you're probably exploring. Everybody's talking about what is it going to cost? Is it going to be free? Is it going to be free? Is it going to remain free? And so they've been updating their models. They've already had a payment model behind the scenes where for doing API calls, and now I know when I checked logged in recently, they now have the option, right, for you to remain with a free account, or you can now do a $20 a month account. So it is a very huge, large, expensive model to run. And then I asked it, since this was a presentation to higher education, is how it can be used in higher education. Just some basic examples here. So can be used to create automated grading assistants, virtual language tutors, can be used to assist with researching and generating summaries, can be used to assist with content creation, personalizing learning experiences, and here has the potential to revolutionize higher education by providing instructors with powerful tools for teaching and research. All right, so that's my presentation, right? On there, and now I'm going to just take you to ChatGPT 3, where the link, by the way, let me put that in the chat for you, is here, let me just pop it up. So this is the ChatGPT 3, which is the model that's built on the GPT-3 model. And so it's been trained specifically to respond in this question answer mode. The latest model is, I believe, the Da Vinci model, which is 3.5. I know everybody's talking about the next generation that's coming out. Yeah, so you're going to get that message, by the way, at capacity right now. Just refresh, keep refreshing, and then you should get in. Another way to get in to GPT-3 is going to be, and I'm just going to log out here, is if you go to OpenAI.com. So if you just go to OpenAI.com. This is another way that you can get an account. You could simply go to and click on API. And when you click on API, if you don't have an account, you can do is sign up. And when you do sign up, it will ask you to do your email address, etc. I'm just going to log in. So I'm just going to log in since I already have an account. And so when you come in this route, you will have access to basically the API interface for GPT-3 from through OpenAI. And you will see that when you log in, you have tons of different examples that you can see and use and build from and test out. On here at the top, you'll see that you have the documentation, examples, and playground. Playground is where you get actually prompt the models. And here's where, from a developer perspective, that you would interface with this system so that you can, test out your prompts as you're generating and building out applications. You have over here on the right-hand side, you have the different models that you can choose from. You have the Da Vinci model from the text generator, and then you have the Codex, which generates code for languages. And then you have other settings that you can tweak on your models, etc. I'm not going to go too much into detail on those since it's not really about that. Now, how is this being used? So when ChatGPT 3 got released and it became very popular, and it got, everyone was, trying to figure out what this tool is and how it's been used. It became, very controversial, as you know, different folks taking different approaches to it. You have the approach of being very cautious and actually even banning access to the site. And due to for plagiarism and cheating issues. So you have all from that perspective of academic integrity to my approach, which is here's an amazing, absolutely powerful tool that we can utilize in order to enhance the teaching and learning experience for both faculty and students. So I've been on my track. I've been expanding that, and I've been including it into my classrooms. So one of the things that I learned immediately was, and I'm going to go to the chat version here, and I'll give you an example. So when I teach Introduction to Programming using C++, what I do is my final exams and my midterm exams are basically built out of pseudocode that I would, give students, and then they would have to generate the code for me. So I recognized immediately that that wouldn't work. So here's an example of what is that there? Of a question on my exam. So this is one of those questions on my exam for them to generate and write that code. So this is one question to write a function. So I'm going to prompt GPT-3 on the chat version to actually generate C++ for me. I'm trying to say using C++, write the function for the following let me edit that. I get error, so let me edit that, and I've got to paste my prompt, and I want to click save. So what I just did, by the way, was I accidentally hit enter, and I did not complete my prompt. So you can go back and edit your prompt. So in ChatGPT 3, what it is doing is it's generating, as you interface with the system, it is learning from you as you are contextually as you're conversing with the system. So the way it works is you give the system some type of prompt, what you want it to do. You give it the information that it wants, and then it will give you that response. So notice that right here, it generated that code for me. Okay, and let's see here. Notice that it even put the pound include, assuming a book.h, which is all part of my class. They have to do a book.h from the pseudocode, right? So as you can see, I recognized rather quickly that I could not be doing my exams that way anymore because students can just take my pseudocode, stick it in here, and generate that for them. So what I've done is I've included it into my, so I've embraced it open arms, and I've included it in the course. So students, the first night of class this semester, I had them all make sure that everyone had accounts for OpenAI, and their assignment now is I give them a problem set that I know that they're not ready for. So I give them a little more advanced, and I cover whatever basic functionalities I need for that particular assignment, and then I ask them to complete that assignment, and they should use the system, the ChatGPT system. What they need to do in their answer is not only provide the code, but they need to also provide the prompt that they use to generate the code. Now it's not perfect. It will give you wrong answers, and it does that often. So part of that whole process is to emphasize on the students that while this system can generate code for you, you still have to understand programming. You still have to understand variables. You still have to understand memory. You still have to understand procedures and returning values and all of this components of programming, because if you don't, you won't be able to put these systems together, even though it's generating code for you. So, so that's one. Also, two, it's, this is going to be the tool of the future. So it's here already. It's not a tool of the future. It's a present tool. And so students are going to be using this and having access to it. So teach them how to use it appropriately. So that's one way of how I'm doing it. So I have to redo all my C++ assignments, which I'm in the process of doing in order to accomplish that. So that's one way. Another manner in which we're using this is we're doing we were awarded, our president at the college, at Miami Dade College, offered the presidential research grant, basically, with excellent, it's a research grant where we selected, I believe, 10 different AI projects that were submitted for the grant.
Where the hell does this
More
go?
than 10. And we were able to, my group won, and we were doing a project on Harry Potter. And what we were doing is we are building out, for example, literary devices. So I'm combining this with a literature course, right? So I'm working with the literature faculty. I'm working with a librarian that we're building out the system to then be able to process and query the Harry Potter books for different literary devices and examples of them, etc. And so while this system is, you can do it. So for example, here you can say list all usage of symbolism in the Harry Potter novels, right? And as you prompt it, you're going to see they're going to give you here a few examples. So the system contextually is able to determine and identify symbolism, etc. But it is not a data store.
Can you get the bomb out of the dining room?
So it is not a data store of for that book. So it doesn't have that data, but it's been trained on such a large amount of text that it's have embeddings for those. So as you can see, it's doing that, and these are going to give you a full example, and then if you try and coax it. So normally it would not give you all the this model is trained, the chat model is trained to only answers, to give answers for certain things. So it won't give certain answers in order for, usability, etc., appropriateness. But if you are able to query this system appropriately, then you can extract that information. So it's a model that's, it's a language model, and so it can it's generating that from all those embeddings, the representation of all that of their corpus in there. So that's what's happening. So we were able to then build out our system where we are able to query and create a semantic search engine for on the Harry Potter books specifically. In fact, here is an example of that. This is just showing what we did here. So this is an example of the code that's out there. There's just tons of code available that can be used, that's open source, that can be modified, adopted, etc. This is one such system. By the way, the system will tell you, and if you ask it the appropriate question, it would write the system for you. So it is quite capable of writing other AIs for you. So this is an example of that Harry Potter system. So we were able to read the document, and then we can ask it questions. So for example, here was asking it, who's Harry Potter, and it's giving me a bunch of summaries on it, and basically I've broken it down so it gives a certain number of responses, and then it gives you a summarization at the end of who is Harry Potter. So we then compress all of that. That is how, another mechanism, how we're utilizing it. So now we can use this system to explore literature. So not only did I ask that question of who Harry Potter was, but now I asked it more specifically because the GPT-3 model, Da Vinci model that's out there, that while it can be able to respond appropriately with symbolism and metaphors, etc., it did not have the entire works at hand. So here we have the actual works at hand that we have it reading and then being able to respond. So we're able to create the semantic search engine to ask those questions. So here we ask about, where is it here? Should have made it so you see a little bit better on there. Here, enter your question. List the examples of symbolism used in the Harry Potter story. And as you can see now, it gives me a whole lot. Now, this list here is only for book one, and we're going to be doing them in all books, etc. So as you can see, you can utilize the system in a chat interface on the web. You can build out systems behind the scenes that can interface with the via the API and allow you to create your own searchable, semantically searchable database with ease. So if you notice, this entire system was, so it was actually two parts. So the first part was to process the text and generate the embedding. So this is the code for it right here, right? So from there on here, that's the code to generate those embeddings. And here's the code to do the search and check against it. So with relative ease, system can be generated, very powerful systems from this. Now, some of the questions in there. Some of the questions I saw is how will educators be able to spot if this technology is used for homework? So therein lies, the never-ending Cold War between academic integrity and cheating, right? As soon as we have any tool that moves in any one direction, students will find a way, to circumvent those tools, and we will continue doing that. And so there will always be that never-ending escalating fight between academic freedom and there. But there are systems that can detect, and so you will see that there are systems out there that can detect, be built to detect whether something is generated by AI, and then you will see that there are equally as many numbers of methodologies and examples that you can build to avoid detection. So that will be there. So there's certain folks that will always be doing that. Different companies will be adding in these features in there. I'm pretty sure we already, you have, like Turnitin, and those folks will eventually, if not already, on their way to including features for detecting content produced by AI. So that will be ongoing, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Let's see, what was the other question I had on there? Yes, Turnitin is going to have to get smarter. Yes, Turnitin is getting a lot smarter. They're adding it in. At Miami Dade College on our annual conference day, we're doing sessions on ChatGPT 3 and how it can be used, as well as the impact on plagiarism. Turnitin is making one of those presentations where they're discussing, the issues around plagiarism and detection. And my focus is on, creative ways to utilize the technology to enhance learning, right? So that's my approach. Again, I'm looking at it from a performative basis in terms of students utilizing the tool for that purpose. And by making sure and insisting that they use the tool and have to provide their prompts, I kind of, address that upfront with them, right? So I will tell you, my students were very, very surprised. They were like, "You want us to do what?" And I was, of course, I said, "Listen, this is how we're going to be doing it." Comment section is being integrated with Microsoft Teams. Can you have a foreign speaker in a meeting? Yes, that is correct. So,
George,
yeah.
why don't you let Mark help us get to the questions? Because it's really hard to present and pull the questions out. But I do like the fact that we have switched into asking questions. This is really cool. I did see one though. Can you take a student's paper and ask ChatGPT if ChatGPT wrote it?
Yes. Basically, you will ask it to detect. So here's what you can do. So folks do this, right? And this is the power of GPT-3. So you would say, I could say, using Python, what are the components to building a model to detect content generated by and it will give you that, it will tell you, right? So building a model to detect content and it will tell you your data collection step, will do all that. And then you can go into even each one of those steps and well down deeper to get the actual code. So we'll see if it will give us code at this point for each of those. Usually it does it in a very general manner, at a high level of abstraction level, and then you can drill down further into additional code and for it to produce that for you. So yes, you can submit it and do it that way. You could pre-train. You could just copy that document if you wanted to and stick it in there and see. Now I don't know how well that would work. You usually you would have to adjust for finding the different patterns that are unique to these learning models and the generated content. So from there, notice it did not give me codes. So I would go into the data collection. I would tell it, specifically, I have a document, whether, and I need to read it. So you could give it all the component parts. You could build those out. So for example, here's an example of, where it is.
Hey, can y'all hear me? This is Mark. While George is doing that, I'm just want to point out Adam has a pretty good response there from Lansing about how he handles the threat of ChatGPT, how he sort of adjusts his assignments.
Yeah, Adam, you want to come off mute and just go ahead and tell us to everybody if they weren't watching for chat? Well,
He may have
okay,
stepped away.
okay. Yeah, he's got a pretty good response. He's talking
Oh, he
about,
said it's loud there. It's too loud to talk.
okay, all right, that's fine. That's fine. You can read it in chat. He's talking about focusing on formative assessments and not so much on the finished product
Right.
or major product. Okay, George, I'm sorry, back to you.
Yes. So here are some of the code generated or systems generated. So writing the code for the Harry Potter and everything, you can see that the system will tell you how to generate the completion process, how to open up and connect to the system, inputting your API key. It generates all of this for you. So that's one of those systems in there. So the name of the game today is one is prompt engineering, but then also people are talking about fine tuning. Fine tuning is only necessary if you're building out a new skill, but the model as is pretty powerful and can do quite a few tasks already. Once the exchange substance can let ChatGPT game the system. So again, I think in terms of academic integrity, the steps that we take as an institution, as institutions, are going to have to change a bit. The technology will, will be able to, you will find that students are going to get passed. Some are going to get passed, some are not. Some things are going to get caught, some things are not. I think that it is important that is an important part of the learning process. Quite frankly, it is only that whole question of integrity there and is only it's not going to change. It's still the same thing today. I've seen, that question raised when I was at NSU doing online programs back in the 80s and 90s. That was a big concern then. When I came to Miami Dade College, it was a big concern then, and today it's still a big concern. And so the tools change, but the issue doesn't. So
Right.
so as a result, I tend to focus more on coming up with creative ways of applying the technologies and let the folks who are skilled at detecting integrity issues, let them figure those out, and absolutely will utilize them as they become available. But until then, because there's still there's some systems out there you can build out your own, by the way, and there's examples out there of these types of systems that you can utilize and employ and expand upon. But until there is robust detection systems, you're flying blind. So I chose to not fly blind, but basically, have them show me their work right up front. so that's
Okay.
There's
George,
one.
one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's one question. Interesting. Has anyone tried to block ChatGPT somehow from their school network? Has that been an option for anybody? That was a question in the chat box.
Yes, there was I forgot one institution in New York. I don't remember who it was in New York that or was it in Virginia that contemplated or did block GPT-3. Quite frankly, if you think about it, I mean, this is like the ultimate library, right? And so, you want to know how to use it appropriately. So, so that's the other side of this coin is like, do yes, you want to encourage the use of the tool. No, you don't want to encourage cheating of the tool. So, cheating with the tool, but, yeah, that's going to be there, so like I said, you take the steps that you got to do, you turn it in, you turn it in, you can build out your own, there's I don't recall the name of the other, there's a product, that actually, uses, built out a system to track and check, detect
Oh,
AI.
there's Turnitin and there's a lot of those things, but
Yeah, but I don't think Turnitin has it yet, though.
oh,
Yeah, yeah, they are, the last time I spoke, they were adding it, but it wasn't deployed, so, I don't know if they've deployed it now, but, this was about 2.5 weeks ago. So I don't know if they've deployed it already.
okay.
So yeah, though, it's coming, it's going to be here, and it's going to be added in, and like I said, I know the institutions all follow and utilize those tools as they come out. So, well, not all, but we try to. So I'm not too worried about that.
Okay, I would
questions?
like to thank George for being here today. George, do you mind people contacting you via email?
Oh, absolutely, no problem.
Why don't you put your email in chat? Miami Dade College has quite a lot of work that has gone into their AI BILT. Would you like to make a couple of comments about the AI BILT, by the way?
Oh, what a lovely process. Thank you, Anne. Yes, we did do it was fantastic, and thank you, Anne. It was an amazing process. It was almost a year, right? Or more. Yeah, a year.
It's been about a year,
It's been a
and we
year.
have about a little over 20 on our AI BILT team. We did the whole voting process. And then what did you folks do with it? I got to work with the faculty on this one. It was great fun.
So yeah, so building out that, I will tell you that for me, the hardest part of that was trying to put your arms around the entire field and be representative. So I was very, very appreciative of industry partners coming in and sharing their perspective and what was, important. We had to, I will tell you that our sticking point was math, and it will be math, as usual, trying to determine, the appropriate level. Again, our programs, we did a general education level certification where it was interdisciplinary, so that we can infuse AI technology into the curriculum and throughout the curriculum. So basically, it's a 3-course certificate. One is what we call AI thinking, which is basically just an introduction to AI. And it's a survey course that kind of covers the entire field, exposes them to how these systems are built from a no-code as well as a coded type environment. It doesn't require math, it doesn't require programming, so it gives students an entry into exploring the topic. Then we have a discipline-specific course that they would take, and of course we have an ethics course that goes along with that certificate. That certificate builds into an AS degree, and then the AS degree builds into a bachelor's degree. So that's what we did and built out. Thanks to Dr. Beeler. Really appreciate all the BILT team and everything and all the contributions and feedback that they provided. Our programs are going through the approval process right now, and we're looking forward to start offering the advanced classes. We already now have the classes for our certificate available. But we're looking forward to having our AS and our BS ready for offering, either starting the summer or fall.